Crixthor was the best hunter in the entire galaxy. Every creature that lived among the stars knew his name and feared it. He stood 9 feet tall with black scales covering his body like armor. His 6 eyes could see things that other beings could not see. He moved faster than most creatures could think. For 20 years he had hunted the most dangerous prey across 1,000 worlds, and he had never failed once. His ship moved through space like a shadow. No one could see it coming. No sensors could detect it. Inside his command room, Crixthor studied the information on his screen. The Huntmasters had given him a new target, and the reward was enormous. 5 million galactic credits for one simple job. The target was a species called humans. They had just started exploring space, and they had built a few colonies on distant planets. According to all the reports, these humans were weak and slow. They had no claws or fangs. Their skin was soft and easy to tear. They had no natural weapons at all. The Huntmasters classified them as prey animals who had somehow learned to use technology. Crixthor felt almost disappointed. This hunt would be too easy. Perhaps he would take his time and make it more interesting. He set his ship's course toward a human space station called Columbus Station. It orbited a colony world that humans had named New Arizona. The station had only 12 humans living inside it. 3 days later, his ship arrived in the system. Crixthor could see the human station spinning slowly in orbit. It looked crude and primitive compared to the advanced technology he was used to seeing. Their sensors were so basic that they could not even detect his invisible ship. He watched the humans moving around inside the station through his advanced viewing systems. They looked even weaker than the reports had suggested. They walked on 2 legs without any grace or natural skill. Their bodies had no protection at all. Crixthor wondered how such a species had survived long enough to reach space. Their home world must have been very easy and comfortable with no real predators. He chose his first target carefully. A female human named Dani Martinez was working alone in a section of the station where they grew plants. She was perfect, isolated from the others and completely unaware of the danger approaching her. Crixthor activated his personal cloaking device and transported directly into the station's outer corridor. His claws made no sound on the metal floor. His breathing was completely silent. He was death itself, and death always moved in silence. He walked past several humans who never noticed him at all. They were so comfortable and unaware. They had no instincts for survival at all. The hunter felt disgust rising inside him. Where was the challenge in hunting creatures like these? Dani Martinez was humming a song while she checked her plants and wrote notes on her electronic tablet. She seemed completely absorbed in her work. Crixthor entered the plant room and studied her carefully. He calculated the best way to grab her without damaging her too much. The Huntmasters wanted one human alive for study, but something strange happened. The human female stopped humming. Her body posture changed in a very subtle way. Her eyes glanced toward a shiny metal surface that showed a reflection of the area behind her. Dani spoke without turning around. Her voice was calm and conversational. She said that their sensors might be primitive, but humans were not stupid. She said Crixthor had been on the station for 6 minutes. The air pressure had changed when he transported inside. The temperature sensors had detected his body heat, and she could smell him. He smelled like ozone and copper. Crixthor froze in complete shock. This was impossible. His cloaking technology was the best in the galaxy. No species had ever detected him while he was invisible. Dani turned around and looked directly at where he stood. She said he should start talking because in 30 seconds her crewmates would notice she had stopped sending her regular updates. In 60 seconds they would come looking for her. The hunter deactivated his cloak and appeared before her in all his terrifying glory. He told her not to move, but Dani did not scream or panic. Her face was pale, but her voice remained steady. She asked him to explain what he wanted because her crew would be arriving very soon. Crixthor's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. He called her prey and told her that brave words would not save her. Dani repeated the word prey with a strange expression on her face. It was not fear. It was something else entirely. She asked if he really knew nothing about humans at all. The communications panel on the wall made a sound. A male voice came through asking if Dani was okay because her updates had stopped. Dani looked at Crixthor with eyes that suddenly seemed much more dangerous than they should have been. She said they were about to find out what humans were really made of. Then she slammed her hand down on the emergency alarm button. Red lights flooded the entire room. Loud sirens began wailing throughout the station. Blast doors started closing automatically all around them. Dani ran toward the exit with surprising speed. Crixthor moved to catch her, but she dropped into a sliding motion that sent her under his reaching claws. She rolled and came up running and made it through the door just before it sealed shut. Crixthor stared at the closed door. That movement had required excellent reflexes and spatial awareness. It was the kind of movement a hunter would make, not prey. A voice came through the station's speaker system. It said this was Station Commander Paul Bennett speaking. The voice said Crixthor was violating multiple galactic treaties and human laws. The voice ordered him to surrender immediately, or they would respond with force. Crixthor clicked his mandibles in amusement. Force? What force could these soft creatures possibly have? He placed his clawed hand against the blast door and activated his armor's power systems. Energy crackled around his arm and the door began to glow red from the heat. The metal started melting. The door exploded inward and Crixthor stepped through the smoke. His sensors detected 3 humans coming toward him from different directions. Good. Let them come. He would show them why he was the apex predator. The first human appeared carrying some kind of industrial tool that had been modified into a weapon. The human saw Crixthor and immediately dove sideways. The hunter fired but missed. Then the human aimed his tool at the ceiling and fired. The ceiling pipes burst open and thick white foam sprayed everywhere. Crixthor's vision became useless in seconds. He heard footsteps moving through the foam in coordinated patterns. The humans were working together without speaking. Then something hit him from the side. It bounced off his armor, but it told him they knew exactly where he was, even though they could not see him either. Suddenly, the humans attacked from all directions at once. The humans fired multiple weapons at once from different positions. Crixthor recognized modified mining lasers and industrial cutting tools, and even a crude railgun built from cargo equipment. None of these were military weapons, but the humans used them with deadly precision. They aimed at the joints in his armor and his sensor arrays and his weapon systems. The hunter roared and charged through the foam. His superior strength let him move faster than the humans could adjust their aim. He crashed into the human named Jake Morrison and sent him flying into the wall with tremendous force. The human hit hard enough to break bones and fell to the floor. Crixthor felt satisfaction. But then Jake groaned and started moving again. The human had been thrown with enough force to kill most species, but he was already trying to stand up. Blood ran from his nose, but his eyes were still focused and aware. Jake spoke into his communicator. He said these things were built tough. He told Commander Bennett to escalate to Plan Delta. Plan Delta? They had multiple backup plans? How long had they known he was on the station? Before Crixthor could think about this, the floor suddenly dropped away beneath him. He realized too late that he was standing in an emergency evacuation module. These sections were designed to separate from the main station during catastrophic emergencies. The explosive bolts fired and suddenly he was tumbling through space in a small metal container. Through the viewport he watched Columbus Station growing smaller. The humans had ejected an entire section of their own station just to remove him from the fight. They had sacrificed their own infrastructure without hesitation. This was the kind of ruthless tactical thinking he had only seen in military hunter species. His computer calculated that the module would burn up in the planet's atmosphere within an hour. The humans had wrapped him in a coffin and sent him to die. Crixthor activated his personal emergency beacon. His ship responded immediately. The automated systems brought the Silent Fang alongside the tumbling module and retrieved him. Within minutes, the hunter was back aboard his vessel. He was furious and confused and something else he had never felt before. He felt uncertain. He reviewed all the data from the engagement. The humans had detected him almost immediately despite his advanced cloaking. They had used one of their own as bait to draw him into position. They had coordinated their attack without apparent communication. And they had been willing to damage their own station without any hesitation at all. These were not the actions of prey animals. These were the tactics of persistence predators. His computer finished analyzing human evolutionary history. What Crixthor read made his blood run cold. Humans came from a planet classified as a Class 7 hazard world. This was the highest danger rating in the entire galactic catalog. Their world had extreme temperature changes and aggressive diseases and predators everywhere, and constant natural disasters. Humans had not become dominant through strength or natural weapons. They had done it through pure endurance. The report showed ancient human hunting methods. They would chase prey animals for days until the target collapsed from exhaustion. They built traps. They used tools. They worked in coordinated groups. Humans did not overpower their prey. They outlasted it and outsmarted it and adapted until nothing could escape them. Then Krixthor found the most disturbing information. Human reaction time was actually faster than most galactic species. Their appearance as prey animals was evolutionary deception. On Earth, humans had been both prey and predator. They had to develop the abilities of both just to survive. The hunter sat in his command chair staring at the data. For the first time in his life, he felt doubt. He had hunted the most dangerous species in the galaxy, but he had never hunted something that hunted the way he did. He had never faced a species that was both prey and predator at the same time. His communication system made a sound. An incoming message from Columbus Station was broadcasting on an open frequency. Commander Paul Bennett's face appeared on the screen. He was a middle-aged human with gray hair and calm eyes. His eyes showed no fear at all, only calculation. Bennett said that Krixthor had attacked a civilian station and injured one of his crew. Jake Morrison had a concussion and 3 broken ribs, but he would survive. Bennett said the hunter was not welcome in human space. He should leave now and they would not pursue this further. But if he stayed, he would learn why humans no longer had any natural predators. The transmission ended. It was not a threat made with anger or bravado. It was a simple statement of fact delivered with complete certainty. This was a species that had climbed to the top of the food chain and never looked back. Krixthor knew he should leave. Every instinct told him to find easier prey and abandon this contract. But he was the greatest hunter in the galaxy. The greatest hunter never retreated from prey. He set course back to Columbus Station. This time he would show no mercy. This time he would demonstrate why the Velkar hunting clans were feared across all the stars. His ship's computer made a warning sound. Multiple vessels were approaching the station at high speed. Reinforcements. The humans had called for help. 3 human ships appeared on his sensors. They were cargo vessels that had been hastily converted with weapons. Their hulls showed damage from hard use and their power systems were barely optimal. Krixthor's tactical computer analyzed each vessel and determined they were minimal threat. A voice came over the communications channel. Captain Linda Hayes of the cargo ship Desert Wind said he had one chance to leave human space. She told him to take it. Krixthor did not respond. Talk was useless. He activated his weapons and launched plasma missiles at the nearest cargo ship. The missiles streaked through space toward the Desert Wind. They would penetrate the shields and pierce the hull and detonate inside the ship. But the missiles never reached their target. Another cargo ship fired a cloud of metallic chaff that exploded between the missiles and the Desert Wind. The plasma weapons detonated early and their energy dispersed harmlessly into space. The humans had predicted his opening move. Krixthor adjusted tactics and fired his main laser. The concentrated beam could cut through capital ship armor. He aimed at Columbus Station's command module where the thermal sensors showed multiple human life signs. The 3rd cargo ship suddenly rotated and fired its maneuvering thrusters at full power. The vessel lurched directly into the laser beam's path. The beam hit the ship's reinforced cargo bay doors. The laser burned the metal but failed to penetrate. They had emptied the cargo bay and added extra armor plating. They had turned a cargo ship into a mobile shield. Again, they had predicted his attack. Captain Hayes spoke again. She said he was predictable. Hunters went for the kill shot and the efficient strike. But humans were very good at not being predictable. The 3 cargo ships broke formation. Each one moved in a different direction at maximum speed. At the same time, Columbus Station began launching dozens of small objects into space. Krixthor's sensors struggled to track them all. His computer made a warning sound. His cloaking system was being disrupted. The objects from the station were emitting overlapping scanning beams. They created a detection grid that made his stealth technology completely useless. The humans could not match his technology, so they changed the battlefield to make technology less important. The Desert Wind suddenly accelerated directly toward him. Its reactor was spiking to dangerous levels. Krixthor fired his defensive weapons expecting the ship to veer away or explode. Instead, the cargo vessel kept coming. It took hit after hit. Its shields failed, but the ship refused to stop. At the last second, the Desert Wind rolled and fired its cargo loading cannons. These were not weapons. They were industrial tools for launching supply containers. But loaded with metal debris and moving at high velocity, they became devastating projectiles. The impacts hammered his shields and drained power faster than he thought possible. His computer screamed warnings about shield integrity while trying to track the other 2 cargo ships executing similar attacks from different angles. This was not a military battle. This was a brawl. The humans fought like cornered animals using every tool they had. and sacrificing their ships for even the smallest advantage. Then the Morning Star rammed him. The impact threw Krixthor against his restraints. Alarms wailed throughout his ship. The cargo vessel's reinforced bow crumpled against his superior hull, but it transferred enough kinetic energy to send the Silent Fang spinning. Through his viewport, Krixthor saw Captain Hayes standing on the Morning Star's bridge. The viewport was cracked and her ship was breaking apart around her. Her crew was evacuating in emergency pods, but she was smiling. They had sacrificed an entire ship just to disorient him for a few seconds, and those seconds were all the other humans needed. The cargo bay doors of the New Dawn opened wide. Something emerged that made every one of Krixthor's predatory instincts scream warnings. It was a human in a spacesuit, but the suit was massive and heavily armored. It was covered with tools and weapons that had clearly been assembled from whatever the colonists could find. The human used magnetic boots to attach directly to the Silent Fang's outer hull. Through his external cameras, Krixthor saw the identification badge. Nick Chen was listed as a mining engineer. Nick activated a plasma cutter and began systematically cutting through the ship's outer hull. Krixthor engaged his defensive systems. He tried electromagnetic pulses and sudden thruster bursts to shake the human loose. But Nick held on. His magnetic locks refused to release and his cutting torch continued its steady work. More humans in similar suits were approaching from Columbus Station and the remaining cargo ships. They moved through the vacuum with complete confidence. They treated space like just another workplace. The hunter realized with growing horror that the humans were trying to board his ship. They were not trying to destroy it. They wanted to capture him. The prey had become the hunter. Krixthor grabbed his personal weapons and abandoned his command chair. If they wanted to board his ship, he would show them what close combat with a Velkar warrior meant. In the confined corridors, his superior strength and speed and reflexes would make him unstoppable. The hull breach alarm sounded. Atmosphere began venting from the outer corridor. The humans had cut through. Krixthor moved to the breach point with his plasma rifle charged and ready. His blade weapons extended from his armor. He could hear them coming. He could hear the magnetic clank of their boots on his deck plates. Nick Chen came through the breach first. He saw Krixthor and immediately dove sideways. The hunter's plasma bolt hit the wall where Nick had been a fraction of a second before. Two more humans came through, moving with military precision despite being civilians. They carried makeshift shields constructed from cargo bay doors and weapons that looked assembled in someone's workshop. Nick spoke through his suit speakers. His voice was calm despite facing a creature that could tear him apart. He said it was funny that Krixthor had come hunting humans because he thought they were weak. But the hunter had not done his research properly. He had not learned what made humans successful. Krixthor fired again, but the humans scattered. They used cover and angles to avoid his shots. They were fast and coordinated and clearly trained. Another voice spoke. It was Danny Martinez entering through a second breach the humans had cut on the opposite side. She said humans did not have claws or armor or venom or any natural weapons, but they had something else. More humans were pouring into his ship now. They came from multiple directions surrounding him completely. Danny continued moving forward despite the obvious fear in her voice. She said humans had endurance. They had adaptability. They could turn anything into a tool or a weapon. And most importantly, they had something Krixthor did not have. The hunter snarled and demanded to know what that was. Commander Paul Bennett entered through the primary breach with a dozen more humans behind him. He said humans had each other. Krixthor hunted alone. He was the perfect solo predator. But humans were pack hunters, and he had just walked into their territory. The humans attacked as one coordinated unit. They did not try to overpower him directly. Instead, they used nets made from cargo webbing, fired from compressed air launchers. They used flashbang devices assembled from mining explosives. They used foam that hardened instantly on contact. Krixthor fought with everything he had. He knocked 3 humans unconscious. He sent 2 more flying with broken bones. His claws raked across suits and shields. But for every human he disabled, 2 more took their place. They were relentless. They kept coming and kept adapting and kept learning from each exchange. Every tactic he used, they countered within seconds. Every advantage he tried to press, they found a way to neutralize. Finally covered in hardened foam and tangled in nets and surrounded by 24 humans with weapons aimed at his head, Krixthor stopped struggling. He spoke quietly. He said they were not prey. Commander Bennett agreed. He said humans were not prey and never had been. They were the species that survived everything their planet threw at them. They turned every threat into a challenge and every challenge into an opportunity to become stronger. They were humans. Bennett knelt down to look directly at Crixthor's eyes. He said the hunter had just learned the most important lesson in the galaxy. Humans did not care if something was bigger or stronger or had better technology. They would outthink it and outlast it, and if necessary, beat it with pure, stubborn determination. Crixthor felt something he had never experienced before. He felt respect for another species. These supposedly weak prey animals had defeated him not through superior strength, but through superior tactics and teamwork, and absolute refusal to give up. He asked what they would do with him. Bennett stood up and looked at his crew. Jake Morrison was there, bandaged and bruised, but grinning. Danny Martinez was removing her helmet. Her face was covered in sweat, but she wore a triumphant expression. Nick Chen was already examining the Silent Fang's technology with obvious curiosity. Bennett said first Crixthor would face charges for assault and attempted kidnapping. Then he would serve community service, helping them understand galactic technology. And maybe if he was smart, he would learn that humans made better allies than enemies. The commander smiled. It was the smile of a predator who had just defended his territory successfully. He welcomed Crixthor to human space and said class was now in session. 3 months later, Crixthor stood in the recreation bay of Columbus Station. His massive frame was surrounded by a group of young human children. They stared up at him with wonder and curiosity instead of fear. A small girl named Sophie asked if it was true he could see in infrared. Crixthor said yes. His species had 6 eyes and each one could see different wavelengths of light. Sophie said that was cool. She could barely see without her glasses. As part of his sentence, Crixthor had been assigned to educational outreach. The humans had decided the best punishment for attacking them was to make him teach their children about galactic biology and culture. It was humiliating and infuriating and strangely effective, because in teaching the children he was learning about humans in ways he never anticipated. A boy named Alex raised his hand. He asked why Crixthor had tried to hurt Miss Danny. The question was innocent and direct. It cut straight to the heart of the matter the way only children could. Crixthor answered honestly. He said he believed humans were weak. He thought they were prey animals and easy targets for hunting. Sophie said matter-of-factly that humans were not weak. Her mother said humans were strong because they helped each other. Crixthor said her mother was very wise. That was a lesson he had learned too late. After the children's session ended, he went to the engineering bay. Nick Chen had basically drafted him as a technical consultant. Nick picked his brain about galactic technology, while simultaneously showing him how humans approached engineering problems. Nick called out cheerfully. He was covered in grease and grinning. He said he had a puzzle for the big guy. Nick held up a piece of technology that made Crixthor's eyes widen. It was a fragment of a Velkar stealth generator from his cloaking system. Nick said they had been studying the ship's systems. The cloaking technology was incredible but also incredibly inefficient. It used enormous amounts of power for short-duration invisibility. Crixthor said defensively that it was the best technology in the galaxy. Nick corrected him. It was the best military technology. But humans were really good at taking expensive over-engineered solutions and making them practical. Over the next hour, Nick showed Crixthor a human redesign of the stealth system. They had reduced power consumption by 40%, while actually increasing effectiveness. They used a combination of Velkar technology and human understanding of light diffraction and sensor manipulation. Crixthor said slowly that they had improved his technology. He could not keep the disbelief from his voice. Nick clarified that they improved their understanding of the technology. Crixthor's people built amazing things, but they built them like weapons. Humans built things like tools. Different mindset entirely. Commander Bennett found Crixthor later in the mess hall. The hunter was learning to eat human food. It was an ongoing struggle, but the humans seemed to find his reactions to different flavors endlessly amusing. Bennett sat down across from him with a cup of coffee. He said they needed to talk. The case had attracted attention from the Galactic Council. Crixthor's mandibles clicked nervously. The Galactic Council oversaw relations between species and had authority to impose severe penalties for violations. Bennett continued. He said the Huntmasters were furious that humans had captured one of their operatives. They were demanding his release and compensation for the insult to their reputation. Crixthor said quietly that Bennett should comply. The Huntmasters had significant political influence. They could make things very difficult for the human colony. Bennett smiled. Crixthor had learned to recognize that particular expression. It meant the commander was about to do something the galaxy would consider insane. Bennett said they had told the Huntmasters no. They also said if the Huntmasters sent another hunter after human targets, they would consider it an act of war. Crixthor stared at the human commander in shock. He said Bennett had declared war on the Huntmasters. They had thousands of hunters across the galaxy. Humanity had barely 50 colonies. They could not possibly win. Bennett interrupted. He said Crixthor was right that they could not win a conventional war. But here was the thing about humans. They did not fight conventional wars. The commander pulled up a display showing galactic news networks. Every major outlet was carrying the same story. The humans had released complete documentation of Crixthor's attack on Columbus Station, and his defeat, and his subsequent re-education. The galaxy was watching a species that nobody considered militarily significant humiliate one of the most feared hunter clans in known space. Crixthor realized something. He said the humans were not just punishing him. They were making an example of him. Bennett corrected him. They were telling the galaxy what happened when someone mistook kindness for weakness. Humans were peaceful. They preferred cooperation and trade and cultural exchange. But they were peaceful because they chose to be, not because they had to be. Over the following weeks, Crixthor watched as the human strategy unfolded. They did not just release information about his capture. They released technical specifications of how they defeated his superior technology. They offered to sell their anti-stealth countermeasures to any species interested in protecting themselves from hunters. The Huntmasters' business model began collapsing. If their prey could defeat them, the mystique and fear that commanded premium prices evaporated. Other species started demanding proof of capability before hiring hunters. The galactic hunting industry went into recession, and the humans filled the gap by offering protection services and security consulting and self-defense training. They turned a military victory into an economic opportunity. Crixthor told Danny Martinez one day that her species was terrifying. They were working together in the botanical bay. It had become routine. He helped her with heavy labor while learning about earth plant biology. Danny asked if he meant because they captured him. Crixthor explained that he meant because they weaponized his defeat without ever drawing a weapon. They turned information into ammunition and reputation into a shield, and his humiliation into their protection. The Huntmasters could not send another hunter without proving that everything the human story suggested was true. Danny smiled gently. She said humans did not survive on Earth by being the strongest. They survived by being the smartest and the most adaptable and the most willing to use every advantage they could find. Crixthor added that this included mercy. Danny agreed. She said especially mercy. He had tried to hurt them and they responded by teaching him. That confused the entire galaxy, which was exactly the point. They did not know whether to see humans as warriors or diplomats or predators or peacekeepers. And that uncertainty was the best defense they could ask for. Crixthor admitted he was learning more in captivity than he had in decades of hunting. The humans were teaching him about strategy and psychology and economics and many other disciplines he never considered relevant to a hunter. But more than that, they were teaching him about community. Every human on the station knew his name now. Not as the dangerous hunter, but as Crix the alien, who helped in engineering and taught the children about the galaxy. They invited him to meals. They included him in recreational activities. They genuinely seemed interested in his well-being. It was strange and uncomfortable and completely unlike anything he experienced among the Velkar. Among his own people, every individual was a competitor for status and resources. He admitted to Commander Bennett during one of their regular meetings that he did not understand humans. Bennett laughed. He said to join the club. Humans did not understand themselves half the time. But that was kind of their thing. They were contradictory and messy and illogical, and they made it work anyway. Crixthor asked genuinely how a species could be simultaneously predator and prey and warrior and diplomat and individual and collective and still function. Bennett thought about it while sipping his coffee. He said it was because humans accepted that they were all of those things. They did not try to be perfect or specialized. They were generalists who could adapt to any role they needed to fill. That was what made them successful on Earth, and that was what would make them successful in the galaxy. The commander leaned forward. He said Crixthor was proof of that, actually. The hunter had come as the galaxy's perfect predator, specialized and optimized for killing. And humans beat him not by being better hunters, but by being better at everything else that mattered. Crixthor clicked his mandibles in thoughtful agreement. He said his species would not understand this. The Velkar believed in perfection through specialization. Bennett suggested that maybe it was time someone taught them a different way. He said Krixthor's sentence was almost finished. He had fulfilled the terms of his community service. Soon he would be free to return to his people. Krixthor surprised himself by asking what would happen if he did not wish to return. Bennett raised an eyebrow. He asked if the hunter wanted to stay with them. Krixthor clarified that he wanted to learn more. The humans had shown him that there were forms of strength he never knew existed. He wished to understand them better. The commander smiled warmly. He said then, "Welcome to the crew officially this time." As Krixthor left the meeting, he passed a viewport showing the stars beyond Columbus Station. Somewhere out there the Huntmasters were probably plotting revenge. Other predator species were probably preparing challenges for this upstart prey species that had dared to fight back. But Krixthor had learned something they had not. Humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their tactics or their tenacity, though all of those were formidable. Humanity's greatest strength was that they made their enemies into allies. They turned challenges into opportunities and defeats into lessons. They did not just survive. They thrived by bringing others along with them. The galaxy's deadliest hunter had finally met his match, and in losing he had won something far more valuable than any bounty. He had found a purpose beyond the hunt. He had found something worth protecting instead of destroying. He had found a place where he was valued not for his ability to kill, but for his ability to contribute and learn and grow. For the first time in his life, Krixthor understood what it meant to belong somewhere, not as a competitor or a threat, but as a member of a community that saw value in him beyond his skills as a hunter. The humans had defeated him in combat, but more importantly, they had defeated the idea that strength only came through domination. They showed him that true power came from cooperation and mutual support, and the willingness to give others a chance to be better than they were. And that lesson was spreading across the galaxy whether the other predator species were ready for it or not. 6 months after his capture, Krixthor stood on the observation deck of the human vessel Pathfinder. He watched as a Velkar attack fleet emerged from hyperspace. 12 hunting ships, each carrying warriors from the most prestigious clans, surrounded the human diplomatic vessel that had ventured into Velkar space. The lead hunter's face appeared on the communications screen. It was Zarkoth, one of Krixthor's former rivals. His scales gleamed with battle honors and his mandibles were spread in aggressive display. Zarkoth hissed angrily. He called Krixthor a betrayer of the clans. He said Krixthor had brought shame to all Velkar by serving prey animals. The Huntmasters had declared him outcast. They had come to cleanse this dishonor with his death and the deaths of his human masters. Captain Lisa Grant stood calmly beside Krixthor. She was young for a captain by human standards, but she had earned her position through competence and creative thinking. Lisa commented dryly that his friend seemed upset. Krixthor replied that Zarkoth was not his friend. Velkar did not have friends. They had rivals in prey. Lisa corrected him gently. She said had not have, past tense. He had friends now, whether his people understood that concept or not. She turned to the communications officer and told them to open a channel to the Velkar fleet. Lisa addressed Zarkoth. She said he had traveled a long way to make threats. Before he did something he would regret, she should inform him that this vessel was equipped with the countermeasures humans developed from Krixthor's ship. Their stealth systems would not work. Their tactics were documented and analyzed, and humans had 6 months to prepare for this exact scenario. Zarkoth laughed in a clicking, hissing sound. He said the humans thought their prey species tricks would work twice. They had studied the victory over Krixthor. They would not fall for the same deceptions. Lisa said that was exactly what they were counting on. She nodded to her tactical officer. The Pathfinder suddenly launched dozens of small objects in all directions. The Velkar ships immediately began evasive maneuvers expecting weapons or mines, but the objects were simply sensor buoys identical to the ones used to defeat Krixthor's cloak. The Velkar hunters had studied the Battle of Columbus Station and prepared for those specific tactics, which meant they were not prepared for what the humans actually did next. The Pathfinder did not fight. Instead, it broadcast a message on all frequencies. Every ship in the sector would pick it up and relay it across the galactic network. The message was simple. It was the complete tactical analysis of Velkar hunting techniques, their ship vulnerabilities, their psychological profiles, the optimal strategies for defeating them, everything the humans had learned from Krixthor. everything they had developed in 6 months of research. They offered it freely to anyone who wanted it. Zarkoth's confusion was evident even through the translator. He asked if they were sharing the information, if they were giving away their advantages. Lisa explained that knowledge was not a weapon when everyone had access to it. It was a foundation for understanding. That was the fundamental difference between humans and hunters. Hunters kept secrets and hoarded advantages and maintained power through scarcity of information. She gestured to Crixthor, who stepped forward to address his former rival. Crixthor said humans shared everything, not because they were weak, but because they were strong enough not to fear competition. The humans had taught him that true strength came not from defeating others, but from raising everyone to their highest potential. Zarkoth spat the word traitor. He said Crixthor spoke like prey. Crixthor countered that he spoke like someone who learned there were forms of power beyond physical dominance. He asked Zarkoth how many hunts he had completed alone. Zarkoth replied proudly that he had completed 347 hunts. Crixthor asked how many allies he had who would risk their lives for him. Silence came from the Velkar ship. Crixthor continued. He said he had the same answer 6 months ago, 0. But now he stood on a ship with 200 humans who had accepted him as one of their own, who had taught him and learned from him, and would defend him against any threat. He asked which of them was truly stronger. Another voice cut into the transmission. It was Commander Bennett broadcasting from Columbus Station. He said the Velkar fleet's presence in this sector had been noted by the Galactic Council. They were currently violating several interspecies treaties regarding unprovoked military action. More ships began appearing on sensors. Not human vessels, but representatives from dozens of other species. The Zephon crystalline warriors, the nebula wraiths, even the hive minds from Sector 7. All species that had once been hunted by the Velkar. All species that had received the human tactical briefings. Bennett continued. He said they were surrounded by species who were no longer afraid of them. The humans did not just defeat one hunter. They revealed that hunters were defeatable. They showed the galaxy that predators could be outthought and outmaneuvered and outlasted. Admiral Torven, commander of the Zephon Crystal Fleet, added her voice. She said the humans had offered to share their defensive technologies with all peaceful species. They asked nothing in return except diplomatic relations and mutual respect. This was a form of strength they had not encountered before. Lisa interjected that this was also why they were not shooting. They could destroy the Velkar fleet. They had run the simulations. With their allies, they would prevail. But humans preferred negotiation to destruction and cooperation to conquest. She leaned forward with a serious expression. She said here was what would happen. Zarkoth would return to the Huntmasters and deliver a message. The age of hunting sentient species for sport and profit was over. They could adapt or become irrelevant, find a new purpose, or face a galaxy that was no longer afraid of them. Zarkoth challenged them. He asked what would happen if they refused. Lisa said simply that they would learn the same lesson Crixthor learned, that humans made better friends than enemies, and they really did not want humans as enemies. The standoff lasted for several long minutes. The Velkar fleet remained in formation with weapons charged but not firing. The Allied fleet held position ready but not aggressive, and the Pathfinder sat calmly in the center, broadcasting its offer of peace to anyone willing to listen. Finally, Zarkoth's ship powered down its weapons. He said stiffly that he would deliver the message. But Crixthor should know that he was no longer Velkar. He was something else now. Crixthor agreed. He said yes, he was something better. He was someone who learned that the strongest warriors were those who knew when not to fight. The Velkar fleet retreated into hyperspace. They left behind a sector full of ships from dozens of species all gathered, because humans had extended a hand of friendship rather than a fist of war. Captain Grant turned to Crixthor with a tired smile. She said that went better than expected. She really thought they would have to at least trade some shots. Crixthor observed that she had been prepared to fight. He saw the weapons readiness and the tactical formations. She did not go into that confrontation unprepared for violence. Lisa explained it was an old human concept called peace through strength. They prepared for war so thoroughly that they could afford to offer peace. Anyone who challenged them knew the cost of fighting, so negotiation became the rational choice. Over the following weeks, the galaxy watched as the Velkar hunting clans fractured. Some, like Zarkoth, chose to adapt and seek new roles as security consultants or exploration guides. Others retreated into isolation, clinging to the old ways. A few like Krixthor chose integration with other species. Humans seemed endlessly fascinated by Velkar biology and culture. Krixthor found himself in the strange position of being an ambassador between his species and the wider galaxy. He taught humans about Velkar technology and philosophy. In return, he learned about human concepts like friendship and community, and the power of collective action. One day he stood in the same botanical bay where Danny Martinez had first confronted him. The plants had grown significantly, and Danny had expanded her research to include botany from multiple worlds. Krixthor said he had been thinking about the first time they met. Danny asked if he meant when he tried to kidnap her. Krixthor corrected her. He meant when he learned that humans were not prey. He was the greatest hunter in the galaxy. He had never known defeat. And then he met a species that had no natural weapons and no armor, and no advantages except their minds and their refusal to give up. He paused while arranging a grow light exactly as Danny indicated. He said he thought he was the apex predator, but humans taught him that there was no apex in nature, only constant adaptation. Humans were not predators or prey. They were both and neither, and something entirely unique. Danny said simply that they were survivors. That was all they had ever been. They survived Earth. They survived space. And now they were trying to survive the galaxy. The difference was that humans thought survival worked better when everyone survived together. Krixthor noted that this was a revolutionary concept to most species. Danny finished his thought. She said, but not to humans, because they learned a long time ago that the strongest pack was not the one with the toughest leader. It was the one where every member made every other member stronger.